What up, YouTube? What's good? This is Steven, and I want to come through right quick with something that sort of popped into my mind today. All right, so you guys may have heard this over the years. Perhaps you may not have heard this over the years, but on occasion, sometimes you'll hear black men say either to black women or about some black women that they want that these black women want light skinned babies with quote unquote good hair. And I kind of find this a little strange that black men tend to say this, um, especially in the climate that we're in now, or that we actually have been in for a while, in terms of like interracially dating and interracial unions and marriages, etc. Because, statistically speaking, for a while, between black men and black women, the black people who have been producing the light skinned babies with quote unquote good hair have been black men. So I do find this a little strange that, you know, some black men tend to say this, right? When the numbers actually say different, right? Um, but I'm thinking about this and like, well, perhaps this is coming from sort of a weird place. Perhaps this is a form. I think one reason why black men use this or say this is I think it's sort of like a shaming tactic when it comes to black women, when it comes to black women perhaps interracially dating, or even just dating a certain type of black man who they may not um, see themselves reflected in when this black woman is dating. You know? Because as well, this tends to actually seemingly, this phrase tends to come from dark-skinned men directed at dark-skinned women. I don't really think it. I don't really see them directing it towards the lighter skinned women. It's more so directed towards the dark skinned women, right? When perhaps they may see a dark skinned woman, perhaps with a man who perhaps does not reflect him, right? Who's not dark skinned just like her, right? So, the black man may feel some type of a way about this. And perhaps this is also sort of like a generational thing because I think, black men, especially dark skinned black men from like the 80s may kind of get this or feel this type of way because I think back in the 80s, black women were saying like, oh, I want light skinned babies with good hair. Notice how they never let that go. Even though statistically speaking, black women are more likely to date within the race and to stay within the race versus black men. But notice how black men ain't letting that go. Also, notice how black women never say that to black men when they're with women of other races, right? I don't think I've ever heard that come up where like a black woman is saying, "Oh, so you want light skinned babies with good hair?" I don't think I've ever heard a dark skinned black woman say anything like that when the black man was with, you know, a woman of another race or even, a biracial or light skinned black woman. Or, I don't hear that coming up a lot. Usually when I hear that phrase, it's coming from dark skinned black men directed towards dark skinned black women. Usually that's the dynamics in play, or those are the dynamics in play. So one, I think it's sort of used as a shaming tactic, and sometimes I think it works on dark-skinned women um, to an extent, just because I think dark-skinned women who may kind of feel, who may be interested in, perhaps dating interracially, are either just dating, quote unquote, exotic black men. Um, they sort of are a bit more low key about it, which I think you kind of should be in general, but still they're low key about it, more so to avoid being shamed, more so. And I know this doesn't go for all dark skinned black women, as well, it doesn't go for all dark skinned black men, of course. Um, but I do think it's something that is needs to be called out, but oftentimes it's overlooked because it kind of gets covered up in other things. And plus, oftentimes when it comes to black women's issues tend to be pushed to the side. Black women's issues tend to be considered black women's issues, especially if it's about a dark-skinned black woman. Then it's definitely considered just a black woman's issue, while black men's issues tend to be considered black people's issues, right? Example, police brutality is considered to be black people's issues, while like beauty and self-esteem and colorism tends to be considered, oh, that's black women's issues, more so dark-skinned black women's issues, right? But that's another video for another day. But back to the topic of this video, another reason why I think black men often say that is, I think low-key, I think it's a form of projecting, honestly. Considering considering who's actually making the light-skinned babies with quote-unquote good hair, right? I think it may be a form of projecting. But perhaps the ones who are saying it and the ones who are actually doing it are two different folks. Perhaps. That could be a possibility. But still, it's a little strange, right? Because usually, like I said, when we talk about the dynamics of the people involved in this exchange, usually it's dark-skinned black men directing this towards dark-skinned black women, right? Dark-skinned black men tend to not direct this towards other dark-skinned black men, right? It's like, okay, they don't feel the need to say that. Because the way that it comes off, it could be coming off as if seemingly coming from a place of like, oh, let's preserve the blackness, right? Let's perpetuate blackness. You could get that message from it, especially if it's coming from someone who kind of like postures themselves as being quote unquote pro-black, right? But you notice that it's tend to be directed towards dark-skinned black women though, right? So I really don't think it's coming from a place of, oh, let's preserve the blackness, let's preserve our race, let's perpetuate blackness. It's not. I really don't think that's the place where it's coming from. Because if that were the case, then it would be directed towards everyone who, swirls or gets with a, exotic black person, or, a lighter skinned black person, or a biracial mixed race person who identifies as black, right? And some, dark-skinned black men may bring up the fact, again, the whole thing in the 80s where the black women were saying this, right? And nowadays, I don't really tend to hear that. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm missing something, but the black women at this point who are interested in perhaps having children sometime in the future, I don't tend to hear them saying, oh, I want light-skinned babies with good hair, even if they do have that mindset, they tend to keep it to themselves, right? Just like the black men who, statistically speaking, may actually have that same mindset based on the stats, right? But they tend to just keep it to themselves, right? So I think it may also be a form of projecting, because these black men, they may have these feelings and they may want to project them onto another person. Like, these dark-skinned black men may have this same feeling and may feel some type of a way about having this feeling, about feeling this way. So projected on the dark-skinned black women, right? Just like how kind of like the whole colorism dynamic thing, or the colorism dynamics work within the community. Oftentimes, dark-skinned black men tend to project the negative feelings that they have about themselves and their features and their skin tone onto dark-skinned black women. And again, disclaimer, this is not all dark-skinned black men. As well, this is not all dark-skinned black women, right? We can say that. Of course not, right? But I think it's still something that needs to be called out, because it's been happening for a while, so it needs to be called out and addressed. But again, based on the stats, I think black women tend to perpetuate blackness as far as their children more often than men. But to be fair, I think both black men and black women tend to perpetuate blackness overall, but I think black women, based on the stats, tend to perpetuate it a bit more, or a little bit more, actually. But it's kind of like something that I think some black men, especially some dark-skinned black men, don't want to let go, even though you'll probably see them, these same black men who are, these same dark-skinned black men, some of them who are bringing this up, you will probably see them with women who don't have the same features as them, who don't have, kind of like the dark skin, the facial features, the hair texture, right? It'll be more so, oftentimes you probably see them with someone who's, light bright, they're probably within the race, so it's not like considered like totally taboo or like them being a sellout or a coon, but you'll see them with someone who's not reflective of them if you really want to go there. But I think black women tend to be the one, especially dark-skinned black women, tend to be the one who are often shamed for it, almost to an extent, like almost kind of like, how dare you? How dare you explore your options? Who told you, dark-skinned black woman, that you have options? Almost taking on that sort of a tone. Almost feeling somewhat slighted and offended that this dark-skinned black woman is not only considering dark-skinned black men. As quiet as it's kept, right? Especially if she is like a really, good-looking, dark-skinned black woman who's, has a good reputation, who's well accomplished. Of course, you don't want to see the, your best going outside of the community. Just like black women don't want to see, their, men that they consider, top shelf men going outside of the community. They don't understood. No one, black men and black women, don't want to see their top shelf options going outside of the community, right? They don't. But when black women do it, right, when black women speak up on it, then it's like, oh, it's sort of like, you get shamed for it, for speaking up about it. The black women, especially the dark-skinned black women, get shamed for speaking up if, you know, the top shelf dark-skinned black men want to go for, you know, biracial Becca, or, you know, or even forget biracial Becca, go straight for Becky, you know, go straight for Rebecca, right? Then, you know, the black woman, you know, especially dark-skinned black women, they're expected to take it in stride, right? To take it with a smile, to be positive about it, you know, not to really have any negative feelings about it. But if it was the other way around, I'm pretty sure these dark-skinned men would probably feel the same way. Just for the fact alone that they letting you know, they already put it in your mind like, oh, okay. Because, all right, let me break it down. They've already put it in the dark-skinned woman's mind if they're saying, oh, you want dark skin, or you want light skinned children with good hair. They've already subliminally at least put it in their mind that, oh, you know, it's a negative thing. You know, to go outside the community or to have relationships, marry and procreate with someone who doesn't have the same features as you, right? And that is perhaps a valid argument, but I don't see it going both ways. You know, I don't see it going both ways. So is it more so to preserve the race, or just to preserve a certain group's dating options so that they don't feel less than, right? But let me bring this video to a close, though. Thanks for watching. I would love to know your opinions on this situation. Let me know in the comments section. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.